Have you ever hated someone so much that it consumed every waking moment of your life? That revenge became the air you breathed, the purpose that dragged you out of bed each morning? I have. For 10 years, I lived for one thing: destroying the Lynch Corporation and the man who ruined my family. I became someone else entirely. I erased Isabella Moretti, the girl who lost everything, and built a perfect weapon in her place. But here's the thing about revenge: it doesn't account for the one variable you can never predict: love. I fell in love with a man who made me remember what it felt like to be human again. A man who saw past my carefully constructed walls and touched the broken girl I'd buried deep inside. And then I discovered his last name: Lynch. Noah Lynch. The son of my enemy. The heir to my nightmare. What I did next? Even I didn't see it coming. And the twist? God, the twist nearly destroyed me. Stay with me. This is my story, and I promise you, it's not what you think. But before we begin, if you love dramatic true stories with twists that'll leave you speechless, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. And drop a like if you think you know how this ends. I guarantee you don't. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I was 16 when my world ended. Not metaphorically, not dramatically, literally. I watched my father's life's work crumble in real time, and there wasn't a damn thing any of us could do to stop it. It was a Tuesday. Isn't that strange? How the worst days of your life can start so ordinarily. I remember because I had a chemistry test that morning. I was worried about balancing equations while my father was across town, sitting in a boardroom, being systematically destroyed by Richard Lynch. My phone buzzed during third period. My mother is calling. She never called during school. "Bella, baby." Her voice cracked, and I knew. I just knew. "You need to come home. It's your father." I found him in his study, surrounded by papers, his face gray as ash. My mother stood in the doorway, mascara streaking her cheeks. My younger brother, Marco, was crying in the hallway, too young at 12 to understand the magnitude, but old enough to feel the terror radiating through our home. "Dad?" My voice sounded small, childlike. He looked up at me, and I'll never forget his eyes. They were hollow, empty, the eyes of a man who'd been gutted from the inside out. "We've lost everything, Isabella," he whispered. "The company, the patents, the contracts, everything. How? What happened?" My mother moved to his side, her hand trembling as she touched his shoulder. "Richard Lynch. He orchestrated a hostile takeover, used insider information, manipulated the board, and exploited legal loopholes we didn't even know existed. But that's illegal. We can fight this." "With what?" My father's laugh was bitter, broken. "He's taken it all, Bella, and he did it legally enough that no lawyer will touch it. He's been planning this for months, maybe years. We were so focused on building something good, we never saw the predator circling." The next 6 months were a nightmare in slow motion. We lost the house first, then the cars. My mother's jewelry, family heirlooms from her grandmother in Italy, was sold to pay legal fees that went nowhere. My father couldn't find work. Lynch had blacklisted him throughout the industry. His reputation, built over 30 years, was destroyed by whispers and strategic rumors. I watched my father shrink. Day by day, he became less confident, less present, less alive. I came home from school one day. I'd transferred to public school, I couldn't afford private anymore, and found my mother on the kitchen floor, sobbing into the phone with her sister. "I don't know if he's going to make it, Sophia," she wept. "He's given up. He's given up." Marco stopped talking much. His grades plummeted. He started getting into fights at school. And me? I got angry. No, that's not strong enough. I became fury incarnate. I spent every free moment researching Richard Lynch, the Lynch Corporation, their business practices, their history, their vulnerabilities. I read every article, every financial report, and every interview. And I made a promise to my father, even though he couldn't hear me anymore through the fog of his depression. I would destroy them, the way they destroyed us. I would infiltrate their company, learn their secrets, and burn it all to the ground. It became my religion, my purpose, the only thing that made sense in a world that had revealed itself to be cruel and arbitrary. I was 16 years old, and I sentenced myself to a lifetime of revenge. 10 years. That's how long it took to become someone else entirely. I changed my name legally. Isabella Moretti became Isabella Morrison, close enough to remember, different enough to hide. I worked 3 jobs through college, putting myself through business school with a focus on corporate strategy and finance. Every class, every assignment, every networking event, all of it pointed toward one goal: getting inside Lynch Corporation. I studied their hiring patterns, learned what they valued, tailored my entire resume to be their perfect candidate. I erased my past, scrubbed my social media, and created a backstory that was boring and unremarkable. I made myself invisible, forgettable, exactly what they'd never suspect. My father died when I was 23, heart attack, the doctor said, but I knew better. Richard Lynch had killed him. It just took 7 years for his body to catch up with his broken spirit. I didn't cry at the funeral. I couldn't. I'd used up all my tears years ago. Instead, I stood at his grave and renewed my vow. I'll finish this, Dad, I promise. By 26, I was ready. I applied for a position in Lynch Corporation's Strategic Development Division, mid-level enough to have access, junior enough not to attract attention, and I nailed the interview. 3 rounds. For each one, I was exactly what they wanted. Competent but not threatening, ambitious but loyal, smart but deferential. I got the offer on a Friday afternoon. That night, alone in my tiny apartment, I finally let myself feel something. Not triumph, not yet, but satisfaction. Cold, hard satisfaction. I was in. For 2 years, I worked at Lynch Corporation. I was the model employee, first one in, last one out. I volunteered for extra projects. I made myself indispensable. And slowly, carefully, I gathered information. Financial irregularities, questionable deals, ethical violations that weren't quite illegal but would destroy their reputation if exposed. I documented everything, building a case that would dismantle them piece by piece. Richard Lynch himself barely noticed me. I'd passed him in the hallway maybe 5 times in 2 years. Each time, I felt rage burn through my veins, but my face remained pleasantly neutral. Just another employee, nobody special. He had no idea that the weapon designed to destroy him was sitting 3 floors below his office. I had almost everything I needed. Another few months, maybe 6, and I'd have enough to go to the media, to regulatory agencies, and to their biggest clients. I was so close. And then, on a random Thursday afternoon, I met Noah. The coffee shop was 3 blocks from Lynch Corporation headquarters. I'd been going there for 2 years. Same order, same corner table, same routine. It was my decompression zone, the 30 minutes each morning where I could drop the mask slightly before entering enemy territory. That Thursday, someone was sitting in my spot. I know how that sounds, entitled, ridiculous, but when your entire life is controlled chaos, you cling to the small things, and that corner table, with the good light and the view of the street, was mine. "Excuse me," I said, more sharply than intended, "that's—" He looked up and I forgot what I was going to say. He had the kindest eyes I'd ever seen, warm brown with little crinkles at the corners, like he smiled often. His dark hair was slightly messy, and he had a pencil tucked behind his ear. Architectural drawings were spread across the table. "I'm so sorry," he said immediately, starting to gather his papers. "I didn't realize this was someone's spot. Here, let me—" "No, I stopped, embarrassed. "I'm sorry, that was rude. It's not actually my table. I just usually sit here." His smile was genuine, reaching those warm eyes. Creature of habit? Something like that. "I get it. I'm the same way." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Want to share? I promise I'm a quiet table companion. I'm just working on some designs, and I'll be completely absorbed in about 30 seconds. I should have said no, should have grabbed my coffee and found another spot, should have maintained my careful distance from everyone and everything. But something about his smile made me feel tired, tired of being alone, tired of being angry, tired of being someone I wasn't. Sure, I heard myself say, why not? His name was Noah. He was a freelance architect working on a community center design for a low-income neighborhood. It's not glamorous, he said, a slight self-deprecating laugh in his voice. Doesn't pay nearly as well as corporate work, but it matters, you know? These kids need a safe place, a place that's beautiful and makes them feel valued. I found myself leaning forward. You really believe that? That architecture can do that? Absolutely. His passion was evident, lighting up his entire face. Spaces shape us. They tell us how we're supposed to feel, what we're worth. If you grow up in places that are neglected and ugly, you internalize that. But if you have spaces that are thoughtfully designed, that show someone cared, it changes things. I couldn't remember the last time I'd heard someone talk about their work with genuine passion rather than ambition. What about you? He asked. What do you do? The lie came automatically. Corporate strategy, pretty boring compared to changing kids' lives. I doubt that. Strategy is like the architecture of business, right? Designing systems and structures. I'd never thought of it that way. In my mind, corporate strategy was a weapon, a tool for destruction. But the way he said it, it sounded almost beautiful. We talked for an hour. I was late to work for the first time in 2 years. And when I finally left, he called after me. Hey, I didn't get your name. Isabella, I shouted back. I'm here most Thursdays, Isabella, same table. I told myself I wouldn't go back. It was a distraction, a liability. But Thursday came, and I found myself walking to the coffee shop. He was there, same table, same warm smile. You came back, he said, and he looked genuinely happy about it. Creature of habit, remember? That was the beginning. I didn't mean to fall in love with him. Love wasn't part of the plan. Love was a weakness, a vulnerability I couldn't afford. For 10 years, I'd been focused, disciplined, and singular in purpose. But Noah slipped past every defense I'd built. It started with Thursdays. Our coffee shop mornings became sacred. We'd talk about everything, his projects, my carefully edited work, books, childhood memories, his real, mine sanitized, and dreams for the future. I want to design something that outlasts me, he told me one morning, his hands wrapped around his coffee cup. Something that makes the world a little bit better. Is that naive? No, I said softly. It's beautiful. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. You're different from most people I meet in the city, he said. There's something, I don't know, deeper, like you've lived more than your years. My heart clenched. If only he knew. Just an old soul, I guess, I managed. Thursdays became Thursdays and Saturdays. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became long walks through the city, talking until the streetlights came on. I told myself I was in control, that I could compartmentalize, that this was just a pleasant distraction. But then came the night everything changed. We were walking along the river, the city lights reflecting off the water. It was late October, and the air had that crisp bite that makes you want to lean into someone's warmth. Noah stopped suddenly, turning to face me. Isabella, I need to tell you something. My heart hammered. This was it. He'd figured out who I was, what I was doing. I'm falling for you, he said quietly. Actually, that's not accurate. I've already fallen, completely. And I know we've only known each other for 3 months, and maybe this is too fast, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. The world tilted. I think about you constantly, he continued, his voice raw with honesty. You're the first person I want to talk to when something good happens. When I'm designing, I imagine showing you the plans. When I see something beautiful, I want to share it with you. You've become essential, and I'm terrified I'm about to scare you away, but I had to tell you. I had to be honest. Honest. The word cut through me like a blade. I wasn't honest. Nothing about me was honest. I was a lie wrapped in a disguise, driven by vengeance. But standing there, looking into his eyes, I felt something crack inside me. something I'd kept frozen for 10 years. "I'm falling for you too," I whispered, and it was the truest thing I'd said in a decade. He kissed me then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And I kissed him back, even as a voice in my head screamed that this was wrong, dangerous, and a betrayal of everything I'd worked for. But I couldn't stop. The next 3 months were the happiest of my life, and the most conflicted. With Noah, I remembered who Isabella Moretti had been before revenge consumed her. I laughed. I really laughed. Not the polite, professional chuckle I'd perfected. I felt light. I felt hope. He introduced me to his friends, other architects, artists, and people who cared about making things rather than destroying them. I met his mother, a warm woman who hugged me like I was already family, and insisted I call her Margaret. "Noah's never brought anyone home before," she whispered to me in the kitchen, her eyes twinkling. "You must be special." Guilt gnawed at me constantly. At work, I continued gathering evidence against Lynch Corporation. I was so close now. I had financial records that proved fraud, emails that showed conspiracy, and documents that would bring the whole empire crashing down. But every time I looked at those files, I thought of Noah, of his kindness, his integrity, his dreams. How could I destroy the company without destroying him too? I started having nightmares. In them, Noah looked at me with those warm eyes turned cold, saying, "You lied about everything. I never knew you at all." I'd wake up gasping, tears on my cheeks. Hey, it's okay," Noah would murmur, pulling me close. "Just a bad dream. I've got you." But he didn't have me. Not really. He had a ghost, a performance. I told myself I'd tell him the truth. Soon, I'd explain everything, and somehow he'd understand. But I was terrified, because deep down, I knew. There was no version of this story where I got to keep him. It was a Saturday in February. We'd been together for 6 months. Noah had invited me to his apartment for dinner. He was cooking, he'd said proudly, though he'd warned me his culinary skills were enthusiastic but questionable. His apartment was in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. High ceilings, exposed brick, and floor-to-ceiling windows. It was beautiful, warm and creative, filled with models of his designs and shelves overflowing with books. "Make yourself at home," he called from the kitchen. "Wine's on the counter." I poured myself a glass and wandered around, smiling at the organized chaos. This space was so perfectly Noah, idealistic and practical, creative and grounded. Then I saw the photograph. It was on a bookshelf, partially hidden behind a model building. A family photo. A younger Noah, maybe 16 or 17, standing with a woman, his mother, I recognized, and a man. The man had Noah's eyes, his smile, and I knew that face. I'd stared at it for 10 years with pure hatred burning in my chest. Richard Lynch. The room spun. The wine glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the hardwood floor. "Isabella?" Noah rushed in from the kitchen. "Are you okay? Did you cut yourself?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Hey, look at me." His hands were on my shoulders, his face concerned. "What happened?" I pointed at the photograph with a shaking hand. That's your father?" "Yeah." His expression softened sadly. "He died 4 years ago. Cancer. I know I haven't talked about him much. It's still hard sometimes." Died. Richard Lynch was dead. 4 years ago. All this time, all this planning, and he was already gone. "Isabella, you're scaring me. What's wrong?" I looked at Noah, really looked at him, at the concern in his eyes, the love, the trust. And I realized something that made my blood run cold. I'd been so focused on Richard Lynch, I'd never researched his family, never looked into whether he had children, never considered that the Lynch Corporation was now run by— "Noah," I whispered, "what's your last name?" Confusion flickered across his face. "Lynch, Noah Lynch. I thought you knew that." "You never told me." I guess it never came up. I usually just go by Noah. I don't really advertise the Lynch connection. It comes with a lot of baggage." He laughed awkwardly. "Why? Does it matter?" Does it matter? Does it matter? I was in love with the son of my enemy, the heir to the empire I'd sworn to destroy. I need to go, I said abruptly. What? Isabella, talk to me. What's happening? I need to go. I'm sorry. I grabbed my coat and ran. He called after me, confused and hurt, but I couldn't stop, couldn't face him, couldn't process what I'd just discovered. I made it to the street before I started sobbing. 10 years. 10 years of planning, of sacrifice, of becoming someone else entirely. And I'd fallen in love with the one person I was supposed to destroy. I didn't answer Noah's calls for 3 days. I couldn't. Every time my phone rang, I felt like I was being torn in half. I spent those days in my apartment, surrounded by the evidence I'd gathered: financial records, emails, documents, years of careful work. And I researched Noah. Noah Lynch, 32 years old, graduated top of his class from Columbia's architecture program, started his own firm focused on community development and affordable housing, donated 60% of his profits to charity, volunteered teaching design to underprivileged kids. He'd taken almost nothing from his father's estate, I discovered. The bulk of his inheritance had gone to establishing a foundation for families affected by corporate fraud. Corporate fraud. I found an interview he'd done 3 years ago for an architecture magazine. The interviewer had asked about his father's business legacy. "My father built an empire," Noah had said, "but empires are often built on the backs of people who get crushed in the process. I saw that growing up. I saw the cost of that kind of ambition. When he died, I had to decide what kind of legacy I wanted to leave, and I chose to build things that lift people up rather than tear them down." I read that paragraph 20 times. He knew. On some level, Noah knew what his father had been, and he'd chosen to be different. My phone rang again. Noah, again. This time, I answered. "Isabella," his voice was ragged with relief. "Thank God, I've been so worried. Please, just tell me what's wrong. Whatever it is, we can work through it." "Can we meet?" My voice sounded hollow. "There's something I need to tell you." We met at the coffee shop, our place, where it all began. He looked exhausted, his eyes shadowed with worry. But when he saw me, his face lit up with that smile I'd come to love. "I'm so glad you're okay," he said, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, saw the hurt flash across his face. "Noah, I haven't been honest with you." "Okay." He leaned back, guarded now. "About what?" "About who I am, why I'm really in New York, and everything." And I told him. I told him about my father, about Moretti Industries, about how Richard Lynch had destroyed everything my family had built, about watching my father die slowly from grief and shame, about changing my name and spending 10 years planning revenge, about infiltrating Lynch Corporation with the sole purpose of destroying it. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. You've been lying to me this entire time?" "Not about my feelings," I said desperately. "Noah, what I feel for you is real. That's the only true thing." "The only true thing?" He laughed bitterly. "Your name isn't even real, Isabella. Or is it? I don't even know what to call you." "It is, Isabella. That part's true. I just changed the last name." "Do you hear yourself?" He stood abruptly, pacing. "You've been using me, getting close to me to get to my family's company." "No, I didn't know who you were. I met you by accident." "Did you?" His eyes were hard now, nothing like the warm gaze I'd fallen in love with. Or was that part of the plan too? Get close to the heir, manipulate him? "That's not what happened." I was crying now, desperate. "I swear, Noah, I didn't know. And when I fell in love with you, it was real. It is real." "How can I believe anything you say?" His voice cracked. "Everything about you is a lie." "Not everything. Not my feelings. Not what we have. We don't have anything." He grabbed his coat. "We never did, because the person I fell in love with doesn't exist." "Noah, please." "My father destroyed your family. I get that.
And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what he did. But you know what? He's dead. He's been dead for 4 years. So who are you really trying to hurt here, Isabella? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're just trying to destroy anything with the Lynch name attached to it. That's not fair. Isn't it? He turned back, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke me. You were going to destroy the company. My mother still works there. My friends. People whose families depend on those jobs. Were you going to think about them when you burned it all down? Or were you so focused on your revenge that you didn't care about the collateral damage? I had no answer, because he was right. I loved you, he said quietly. I loved you so much. I was going to ask you to move in with me. I was thinking about forever. Noah, don't. Just don't. He headed for the door, then paused. You know the worst part? I understand. If someone had done to my family what my father did to yours, I'd want revenge too. But I would never, ever use someone's heart to get it. That's the difference between us. He left, and I sat there, in our coffee shop, in our spot, and realized I'd lost the only real thing I'd had in 10 years.
I went to work on Monday like a zombie. Everything felt hollow, meaningless. I'd achieved my goal. I was inside Lynch Corporation with enough evidence to destroy it, but the victory tasted like ash. I was sitting at my desk, staring blankly at my computer, when my supervisor appeared. "Morrison, you're wanted in the executive suite, top floor." My heart stopped. Why? Didn't say, but it's Margaret Lynch herself, so probably important. Margaret, Noah's mother. I took the elevator up with dread pooling in my stomach. Had Noah told her? Was I about to be fired? Arrested? The executive suite was all glass and steel, intimidating and cold. So different from Noah's warm, creative spaces. Margaret Lynch's office was at the end of the hall. She was sitting behind a massive desk, her silver hair pulled back elegantly. She looked up when I entered, and her expression was unreadable. "Isabella Morrison," she said, or should I say Isabella Moretti? My blood ran cold. "Noah told you. Sit down, please." I sat, feeling like I was facing a firing squad. "Noah is devastated," she said quietly. "I haven't seen him this hurt since his father died." Guilt crashed over me. "Mrs. Lynch, Let me finish." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "He told me everything. About your father, about Moretti Industries, about what Richard did." I waited for the anger, the threats, the security guards escorting me out. Instead, she opened a drawer and pulled out a file folder. "I need to show you something," she said. She slid the folder across the desk. Inside were documents, financial records, emails, legal papers, all detailing the hostile takeover of Moretti Industries. But there was something else, something I'd never seen before. An internal memo, dated 2 weeks before the takeover was finalized, from Margaret Lynch to Richard Lynch. "Richard, I'm begging you to reconsider this. Antonio Moretti is a good man. His company is his legacy. There has to be another way to expand our market share. This is too ruthless, even for you. Please, don't do this." His response? "Business isn't about being nice, Margaret. It's about winning. Moretti was in the way. Now he's not. End of discussion." I looked up at her, confused. "I tried to stop him," she said softly. "I tried multiple times. Richard and we had very different philosophies about business, about life. I stayed because of Noah, because I thought I could temper Richard's worst impulses. But I couldn't, not with this." She pulled out another document. "After your father's company collapsed, I tried to help, anonymously. I set up a fund to cover your family's medical expenses. I tried to get your father job interviews through contacts Richard didn't know about. But he found out and blocked every attempt." I stared at the documents, my entire understanding of the world shifting. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve the truth, all of it." She leaned forward.
Richard Lynch was my husband, and I loved him, but he was also ruthless and often cruel in business. What he did to your family was unconscionable, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry. When Richard died, she continued, I took over the company, and I've spent the last 4 years trying to change it, trying to make it into something that builds rather than destroy. It's slow work. There's a lot of resistance from the old guard, but I'm trying. She gestured to the file I'd been compiling. I know what you've been doing. I've known for about 6 months. My heart stopped. You knew? I'm not my husband, Isabella. I pay attention to my employees. And when someone is as competent and dedicated as you've been, I notice. So I looked into your background. It wasn't hard to find the truth once I knew to look. You're going to fire me? Press charges? No. She smiled sadly. I'm going to offer you a choice. What kind of choice? You have enough evidence to damage this company significantly, maybe even destroy it. You could go to the media, to regulatory agencies. You could get your revenge. She paused. But if you do, you'll hurt a lot of innocent people. Employees who had nothing to do with what Richard did. Families who depend on their paychecks. And you'll hurt Noah, who has spent his entire adult life trying to be nothing like his father. What's the alternative? Work with me. Help me change this company. Use your intelligence and your passion to make Lynch Corporation into something that actually helps people, something your father would have been proud of. I couldn't speak. I can't undo what Richard did, Margaret said quietly, but I can try to make amends, and I can make sure it never happens again. But I can't do it alone. I need people who understand what it's like to be on the other side of corporate cruelty, people who will fight to make sure we do better. She slid a business card across the desk. Senior Vice President of Ethical Business Practices, new position. You'd report directly to me. You'd have the authority to investigate any questionable practices and shut them down. You'd help me rebuild this company's reputation and its soul. I looked at the card, then at her. Why would you trust me? I came here to destroy you. Because you love my son, she said simply. And because I see in you the same fire that made your father a good businessman, the same integrity. Richard tried to crush that in people. I want to nurture it. Noah hates me now. Noah is hurt, but he's also his mother's son, which means he believes in second chances and redemption. She smiled. Give him time, and give yourself the chance to be who you really are, not who your pain made you become.
I didn't give Margaret an answer right away. I went home and sat with everything I'd learned, everything I'd felt, everything I'd lost, and everything I might still gain. I thought about my father, about the man he'd been before Richard Lynch destroyed him. He'd been passionate about business, yes, but also ethical. He'd cared about his employees. He'd built something he was proud of. Would he want me to destroy Lynch Corporation, or would he want me to transform it into something better? I thought about Noah, about his kindness and his integrity, about the way he'd chosen to build rather than destroy, even knowing what his father had been. And I thought about myself, about Isabella Moretti, the girl who'd loved chemistry and dreamed of making the world better, the girl who'd been buried under 10 years of rage and revenge. Who did I want to be? I made my decision. The next morning, I went to Margaret's office. I'll take the job, I said, on one condition. What's that? I want to establish a fund for families affected by corporate fraud, specifically families who were hurt by Richard Lynch's business practices, including mine. I want to make direct amends. Margaret smiled. Done. I'll match whatever the company contributes from my personal funds. And I want to be honest with everyone. No more hiding, no more lies. If I'm going to do this, I'm doing it as Isabella Moretti, not Isabella Morrison. I think that's incredibly brave. It's not bravery, it's just, I'm tired of being someone I'm not. Over the next 3 months, I threw myself into the work. It was hard. There was resistance from executives who liked the old way of doing business. But Margaret backed me completely, and slowly, we started to make changes. We implemented new ethical guidelines, established oversight committees,
reached out to communities that had been harmed by the company's past practices, and made genuine amends. It wasn't revenge, but it was something better. It was redemption. I didn't see Noah during those months. I wanted to reach out 1,000 times, but I forced myself to wait, to give him space, to become someone worthy of his forgiveness. Then, one Thursday morning, I went to the coffee shop. Our spot was empty. I sat down with my coffee, pulling out some work documents. "Is this seat taken?" I looked up. Noah stood there, holding a coffee cup, his expression cautious, but not cold. "It's yours if you want it," I said softly. He sat down. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. "My mom told me what you're doing," he said finally, "at the company. I'm trying to make things right, or as right as they can be. She also told me about the fund, about the amends you're making." I nodded. It doesn't undo what happened, but it's a start. "Isabella Moretti," he said, testing the name. "That's who you really are?" "Yes, I'm sorry I lied about that, about everything." "I'm sorry too," he said quietly. "What I said that day, some of it was unfair. You were hurt. You were a kid when your world fell apart. I can't judge you for how you tried to survive that. You had every right to be angry." "Maybe, but I miss you. I miss us." He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of mine. "Is there any chance? Could we start over, for real this time? No lies, no secrets, just us?" I put my hand in his, feeling the warmth I'd missed so desperately. "I'd like that. But Noah, you need to know, I'm still angry sometimes. I still grieve what my family lost. That doesn't just go away." "I know, and I'm still dealing with the complicated feelings I have about my father's legacy. But maybe we can figure it out together?" "Together sounds good." He smiled then, that warm smile I'd fallen in love with. "Hi," he said. "I'm Noah Lynch. I'm an architect, I make terrible pasta, and I'm falling in love with you." I smiled back, tears in my eyes. "Hi, I'm Isabella Moretti. I'm trying to change the world from the inside, I'm still figuring out who I am, and I'm already in love with you." "Yeah?" "Yeah." He leaned across the table and kissed me. And for the first time in 10 years, I felt like I could finally breathe.
So that's my story. I came to New York for revenge. I spent 10 years building a weapon out of my pain, and then I discovered that the person I was trying to destroy was already gone, and the person I was trying to hurt was the man I loved. Noah and I have been together for a year now. It's not always easy. We both carry complicated legacies, but we're building something new, something that honors the past without being trapped by it. I still work at Lynch Corporation, though we're in the process of rebranding. Margaret and I are transforming it into a company that actually lives up to its stated values. It's slow work, but it matters. My mother and brother are doing better too. The fund we established helped them get back on their feet. Marcos is in college now, studying social work. Mom started a support group for families affected by corporate fraud. We're healing, all of us. I think about my father a lot, about what he'd think of the choices I've made. I like to believe he'd be proud, not of the revenge I planned, but of the redemption I chose instead. Because here's what I learned. Revenge doesn't heal you. It doesn't bring back what you lost. It just makes you into someone you don't recognize. But forgiveness, transformation, building something better from the ashes, that's how you honor the people you've lost. That's how you reclaim your life. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying the anger goes away completely. Some days, I still feel the rage burning in my chest when I think about what Richard Lynch did to my family. But I'm learning to channel that anger into something productive, into making sure what happened to us doesn't happen to anyone else. And I'm learning that love, real, honest, complicated love, is stronger than hate. Noah proposed last month, in the coffee shop, at our table. I said yes. We're building a life together, a life that acknowledges the pain of the past but isn't defined by it, a life that's honest and real and ours. So if you're watching this and you're carrying anger or pain or the weight of revenge, I get it, I understand, and I'm not going to tell you to just let it go. But I will tell you this, you have a choice. You can let your pain define you, or you can transform it into something meaningful. You can destroy, or you can build. And building is so much harder, but it's also so much more rewarding. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life narratives. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in my situation. I read every single one. And if you're struggling with your own pain, your own anger, your own desire for revenge, I see you. Your feelings are valid. But please, consider that there might be another path. A harder path, but a better one. You deserve to be more than your pain. You deserve to build something beautiful from the ashes. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.